All right. Now we play against Kortschnoj.
Yes.
So
Well,
Kortschnoj
this
with
is the normal line from the so-called Catalan defense, for Catalan opening for white. And this is well known, of course. Bishop e7, castle. And here b3. Instead of b3, the normal line is d4. After d4 is very, very sharp, especially now because it's analysis all over the game. But b3 wants to come into the so-called Botvinnik variation for white. White plays more quietly bishop b2, e3, queen e2. This is the idea, later on. And finally, the pawn in d4 or in d3. He can decide. All right, so b3, b6, bishop b2, bishop b7. Normally, black has no problem, too many problems, let's say. But in the opening, he has to be careful for maybe 10 moves like this, has to equalize and later on play. Okay, queen e2. Until now, everything's theory. Knight c6, rook d1, the main line from this variation. Rook c8, and now white could take in d5 and d4, or d4 immediately, or even knight c3. But with d3, he waits a little bit, trying to transpose in some other line, with a small advantage for white, you see. Okay, d3, because black has to decide what to do, to have some counterplay, So, okay, now knight c3, and okay, he invites his opponent to do something to show what is the idea, Knight c3, okay, rook d8. Now again, he could play here if he wanted to, instead of knight h4, which forces a little bit the continuation. Instead of this, he could play immediately c takes d5. Okay, c takes d5 is complicated, but maybe a little bit for white, Now, if he takes with the knight, he has time to take back in d5 and then d4, so some small advantage. Because if you take with e, you have the rook in d8, but you close the line, So after e takes d5, now white can play first d4 with a small advantage. Some small advantage for white. Not too much, but okay, a little bit more pleasant for white. All right, so instead of this, if he takes immediately with the pawn in d5, takes with the pawn, and again d4. And when you take in d4, he plays first knight b5, and it's better for white. Because he comes with a piece in d4. And he has control in d4, white is clearly better, So therefore, in my opinion, was maybe better to play like this, for white, you see. Well, he decided to play some other line, and he played knight h4. So here, black decides to open immediately the game, which is a good idea, And from now on, he has to find the continuation on the queen side, you see. Now everybody knows this is the main line, the theory line,
To attack on the queen side.
Yeah, he has to try to come to b5. It's a little bit strange because he puts the knight in a7, you see, therefore. It's a little bit strange, but it's good. It's good line. Okay, rook b1. And now it's move by move. Okay, knight a7. He accepts the fact that he can trade the bishop, right? Now bishop takes, and now here, knight f3. This is not the best move. Knight f3 is not so good. It was much clearly better here to play bishop a1. Why? Because he has time to do something with white. Now, if you try to do immediately b5, he has time to take in b5, takes, and now knight takes b5, you see, because you open the, and now a4. Now it's clearly better for white, if he has time to arrive here, After bishop a1, white is a little bit better, in all variations. But after knight f3, it's not the same. And now black has time to come to b5 in a good condition, Now he plays b5, it's not the same. You see?
Yeah.
Okay, so he played knight d2, but it's something else, it's not the same. So, okay, now b4, and he took there. He took with the bishop, took in b2, and it was better again to take with the queen. If he took with the queen, it's more or less even the game. Maybe a little bit better for white. But now, after rook takes b2, black is coming, and black, little by little, is better in a few moves, you see. Because he has more space, he could arrive to b4, which is very different, you know. Instead of having the pawn in a passive position in b6, he has a very good position in b4, some initiative in endgame if he arrives in endgame later on, and no problem at all in the middle game, you see, because it's no attacking chance for white anymore, you know. You can't do anything here to attack with white, you know. So, okay, little by little, black is taking the initiative. Knight g5, okay. Knight c6, you see, knight is coming back into play. f4. All right, e5. Good. What to do here? Queen h5. Well, doesn't do anything. I mean, okay, he threatens, but it's very easy to defend. Now, h6. Now, what to do? Knight f3. And here, simple, queen e6. Okay, you look at the position, clearly better for black. Not initiative at all. Black has majority on the queen side, and the pawn from d3 is weak. The pawn from e3, again, is a little bit weak, and you have to be very careful here with white, you see, already. Because black has no problem at all, and black is better, simply better, you know. So what to do? Knight takes. I mean, he tries to trade so many pieces as possible, if, you know, here. Okay, he took, and now rook e2. Okay, rook c6. Probably Kortschnoj thought that he has something, or maybe a little bit of hope, you know. And okay, here he played rook d6. It was better already, instead of rook d6, rook e6. Why? Because after rook d6, it was the last moment here when white could play better. Rook e6 was better. He played normal, rook d6, and now it was the last moment where white could play a good move here, d4. If he plays d4, maybe he can have a normal position. He has time to put the pawn in d5, you know. Because now if you take in d4, it's better for white. He attacks the queen, and he's better for white, with two central pawns, you see.
Yeah.
If he arrives with the pawn in d5, it's very difficult to win for black, you know. But now with the pawn in d3, he has a very good tactical chance. Later on, we'll see. So, okay, rook. Now, okay, he played passive, rook d2. Now, again, it's clearly better for black, and Spassky will show us how, you see. Okay, a5. Now it's very easy. On the queen side, it's clearly better, clear advantage for black, you know. Okay, now if he takes in f4, white has maybe a chance to make draw, you know, because it's not, black is better, but you know, you don't have enough material. To continue, you have to keep the queen, you know, on board. Okay, queen e6. Difficult for white, you know, especially because white was already in time trouble here. So queen e6, very complicated position, and now black is coming. Okay, a4 first, you know. The idea is,
the queen,
I mean, he threatens something on the queen side, but later on he comes on the other side with g5, you'll see.
This is why it's important the queen to stay.
Yeah, he's in a very passive position. He's trying to hold the position, but it's already very difficult for white because no counterplay at all. Is advantage for black in any position, you know, on the queen side, in central squares, on the king side, you know, everywhere, but black is clearly better, you know. And in time trouble also very unpleasant. You see. So king e2, look at what, yeah, king e2, what a move, you know. And after king e2, black is coming, of course. You know, g5. You know what to do? King f7. Look, you know, what happened in a few moves?
Yeah.
White had the good position in f4 for his queen. The rook in e2, if he could play d4, d5, was more or less normal, you know. But here has no counterplay at all. He has to wait, you see, to see what happens. How can black win such a position? Okay, we'll see. King g7 or h4. Well, he realized he wants some counterplay, you know, but it's already unpleasant, you know. Queen e5, you know, controls all the squares, you see. And here, Spassky played rook e8, of course. I mean, he's controlling again. D file, E file, he attacks also in G3. Very unpleasant. Time trouble, You have the possibility to go wrong in any move, for white. It's very easy. So king f2, he has to wait, Okay, he took, and now rook g6. Now he's threatening tactical things, in every position. Now, very unpleasant that if you play rook g1 after queen h2 check, you are lost already, You lose at least a pawn and the attack continues. So what to do here for white? Rook h1, okay, very unpleasant, to have that. And now f4. F4 is fantastic move because he opens completely the position. Now, if you play for here, let's say e4, you have no counterplay at all. He's threatening rook g3, king h7, rook g8, everything. Queen d4 check, terrible position. Even rook g3 check, probably. Rook g3 wins immediately, probably, because rook g1 loses in one move after queen d4 check.
Yes.
So what to do after f4? If you take in f4, he controls all the central squares, and black is winning all over the board because white is Zugzwang, He has time to give one check now in d4. No?
Yes.
What did he play? He played king f1.
The only move, I guess.
The only move. And now look at it. Now h5, fantastic move again, but very easy to find. And now it's complete Zugzwang and white resigned. Why did he resign? Black is simply threatening rook g4, complete Zugzwang, and, the king is, in such a terrible position, f1. Yeah, super grandmaster of such a game, Kortschnoj. Terrible. It happened, some small mistakes. One small mistake after some other small mistakes and so on.
How about this move here?
What? Rook e1. Now, after this move,
is a check here?
Even if he can even take in e2, because now if you take with the queen, you lose immediately.
Yes.
You lose the pawn and the attack continues and so on, If you take with the king, now after rook e6 check, king d2, no? Rook, queen b2 check and resign.
Yes.
Yeah, terrible. Very easy, no? Very easy.
Yeah.
Move by move. Why? Because every black piece is much better, and white is in complete defense, defensive position without any counterplay, Even by this level, is decisive, Of course. But almost from nothing. I mean, very small advantage immediately after the opening. But Kortschnoj trying to play very complicated game, I mean, he wanted to complicate it all the time. And finally, he found himself in such a position without any counterplay.
He played passively.
Too passive, of course. And such a strong opponent like Spassky, you don't give so many chances, And the punishment was, quick.
Sweet.
And very effective,
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gheorghiu.